A Fox News alert on the North Korean threat as the rogue nation outlines detailed plans to attack the U.S. Pacific Island territory of Guam, a major military hub for America. The North saying Kim Jong-un could approve the plans within days. And while some folks living in Guam are understandably concerned, others are taking it in stride.
It's actually been scary since yesterday, so right now, I'm planning with my family to, what are we going to be doing from here on till whenever this is. So we're trying to plan out if there's an emergency and things like that.
I think one of the safest places to be is wherever they're aiming. Their tests don't seem to be too successful usually, and we have missile defense and stuff.
And the governor of Guam says while he is worried about things escalating, he tells our own Tucker Carlson that North Korea has made threats like this before.
This bellicose statement, this is something that is, no different what he's been doing in 2013. At the same time, we are concerned that it does not ramp up. Most of our concern here in Guam is that decisions are not made that would cause some sort of a conflict over here.
Joining us now, retired Lieutenant Colonel Michael Waltz, former Green Beret commander, former counterterrorism advisor to Vice President Cheney, and author of Warrior Diplomat, a Fox News contributor as well. Also, Michael Oslin with the Hoover Institution, a Williams Griffiths Fellow in Contemporary Asia, and author of The End of the Asian Century. Thanks very much for being with us. Colonel Waltz, taking this apart from a military standpoint, why is North Korea most interested in threatening Guam?
Well, the missiles that they've had most success with, the Hwasong 12, that they've tested probably 3 to 4 times now successfully in the last several months, are capable of hitting Guam. They're also able to be on a mobile launcher, which is very difficult for us to find. They can hide them, move them, put them in different types of bunker facilities. So from a military standpoint, it's kind of a sure shot for the North Koreans. But look, the dynamic here has to change. And I think President Trump's rhetoric is spot on in the sense that the calculus in North Korea heretofore has been we have to get an arsenal in order to ensure regime survival. They need to understand that if they get that arsenal, they will fail. And the Chinese need to understand that as well. Their calculus is a unified peninsula friendly to the West is not in their interest, and a failed North Korean state will cause a refugee crisis. The Chinese need to understand that military action is a credible option for us. It has not been the last 8 years, and that if there's war on the peninsula, that is worse than their other fears.
Michael, again, assess this threat. I mean, the North Korean commander in charge of that country's missile system says he's going to aim 4 missiles at Guam and have them ready to go within a week and then just wait for the command. How seriously do we have to take that?
Well, it's clearly part of the tit-for-tat that's going on, John, between the president and Kim Jong-un. I think there's a couple things that are interesting about it. First, what you see is that North Korea, now that the word is out that they have miniaturized weapons that can be on the missiles, and they are really thinking about the strategic ways of using these missiles. They're telling us what they're going to do to raise the cost for us and try to deter us from getting involved or even get us to back down from the commitments we've made to our allies. Second, they're also talking just about attacking the United States. They're not talking about attacking the United States troops in South Korea or Japan, interestingly. I think this is part of a strategy to really make this a North Korean-U.S. battle, so to speak, and try to sideline both South Korea and Japan, get them to think that what they need to do is come back to the table to talk with North Korea, and it's really the United States is the one that's pushing war. So there's a diplomatic element, and along with that, a strategic element that's showing us how the North Koreans are starting to think about using and employing these new weapons in a way to get us to blink and think twice.
Well, but Michael, the North Korean leader, I don't know, is he believing his own PR? Does he really think that he could launch an attack on, the island territory of Guam, a U.S. possession, and not be essentially eradicated by the U.S.?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, he knows very well that an attack like that would more than not likely spell the end of his regime. What he's really trying to do is get Donald Trump to back down. He's trying to take the measure of the man and assume that the U.S. president, the current U.S. president, will act like all other U.S. presidents, that we're not willing fully to go to war, except in the case of an unprovoked North Korean attack on us or our allies, and instead probably maneuver him back to the negotiating table. Look, if I'm North Korea, that's what I want. I want to run out the clock on the Trump administration the way I ran out the clock on previous presidents.
That's right.
Let's talk about...
John, let's keep in mind, too, that Kim Jong-un has his own domestic audience. Obviously not in the way of the United States, but he has, he has his military senior leaders and others that are watching him and watching how he behaves in this tit-for-tat, which, frankly, I think the North Koreans haven't seen before. They haven't seen an American president really make this strong of a statement. And yes, they all put the military option on the table, but there has to be a belief both in China and North Korea that it is very real.
Well, this is obviously quite related to that. Military moves in the South China Sea. The U.S. just dispatched the warship, the USS John McCain, to sail past one of China's artificial islands. It's the third time the Pentagon has conducted one of these, quote, freedom of navigation challenges to China's claims in that region since President Trump took office. What's the message there, Michael?
Well, the message is that we are not going to be as passive as the Obama administration was. Now, the problem with the freedom of navigation operations, they're a good thing to do, and we should have been doing them a lot sooner and a lot more frequently, and it's good that they're doing them. It doesn't change the facts on the ground, however. The Chinese bases that they've built in the South China Sea and militarized, those are not going away. And so, on the one hand, we're sending messages that we're going to remain present and that this is going to be an administration that presses what it considers to be U.S. interests in freedom of navigation and the like. But it doesn't change what the Chinese are doing. And that's actually, John, the same dynamic we have with North Korea. Despite the president's rhetoric, the North Koreans have basically brushed it off, and what they've said is that we're going to be, we're never going to negotiate away these weapons, and in fact, we're going to target you and your forces where they are concentrated. So this is the problem of playing from behind the eight ball. We've let both of these situations develop to a degree where all we can do is try to maintain the presence and the credibility of our commitment, but we can't roll back the clock right now.
Colonel Waltz, an appropriate show of force, or should it be even stronger somehow?
Well, I think this is also part of the negotiations that President Trump had early on with President Xi of China. We've been very quiet on trade issues that the president campaigned on currency issues, and frankly, until this week on the South China Sea, I believe in the hopes that China would take more forceful action in North Korea. Now that they have not, then we are not going to acquiesce on those other things that China cares about. So I think this is a clear message to the Chinese. They need to step up to the plate. They need to change their calculus with North Korea, or we're going to have friction in the relationship across a number of things.
Lieutenant Colonel Michael Waltz, also Michael Oslin, thank you both.